to the atheist why they believe in God. I think the difference would be, the major difference would be like that Christians obviously have the ideology or the idea of the Trinity, right? The Father is the Son and the Holy Spirit, which is kind of debunked or refuted in the Islamic tradition.
You're a single.
Yeah, so it's a monolithic.
One.
Yeah, so Allah is an Arabic word.
Yeah.
Okay. Which literally is al-ilah, which means the God.
Yeah.
So when we... Sorry, do you mind if we come here? These guys are a bit loud. So, yeah, the God just basically means the God.
Yeah.
So when we speak, I think there's... Because when I was reading Richard Dawkins' God Delusion, I'm not sure if you've read this. I'm sure as an atheist, you must be doing your own kind of reading.
Not everyone's read it, but like...
Right, yeah, I know. Yeah. It's one of the popular works. One of his... I see that he's got two strands of argument. One strand of argument is that he kind of discusses Darwinian evolution as going against religion and the religious narrative, and therefore science is right or Darwinian evolution is right. Well,
sorry, mate. Sorry about that.
Sorry, and the God thesis is wrong. Another thing he talks about is kind of like the problem of evil. He dresses it up, but it's really the problem of evil. A third thing is this idea, where he says that, okay, let's presuppose that there's a God, but which God is it? Is it Allah, or is it Ram? Is it Ganesh, or is it Shiva, or is it Jesus, or is it Zeus? And then you go into mythologies, right? So these are discussions. But it's important to realize that from an Islamic perspective, when we're talking about a God, we're talking about an entity that was the initiator of all that exists. That's what we're talking about. The ultimate creator, if you will. Now, let me ask you a question. Are you an atheist as well?
I would consider myself an atheist, yeah.
Why? Let me ask you why. And you're free to ask me the same question.
Well, I'd say, not to turn it on its head, I know it's a bit of a cheap way to turn it, but I'd say, why do you believe in a God? Because as an atheist, I'm just an absence of a belief. As we've established, you believe in Allah, but you don't believe in all the other 3,000 or so gods that have ever existed or have ever people have ever believed in.
Yes,
right?
yes.
I just don't believe in one more God than you.
All right, that makes sense, and that's exactly what Richard Dawkins says. Those are gods.
So you are also an atheist in the sense that you don't believe in those other 2,000.
Right, I see what you're saying. So let me try and assess. You believe the normative default position should be atheism. Because it's a lack of belief, and a lack of belief necessitates that should be, you should start off with that neutral position of lack of believing in believing in things.
Like you would say that the lack of existence before existence came into being. Everything starts from nothing. For anything to be provable, for anything to be tangible, it has to start at nothing and then be built upon it. If God or Allah were to reveal themselves to me now, then that's absolutely fine.
Right.
But
so
built upon absence of everything. Everything starts off as atheist.
What's your names, by the way? Sorry, I didn't say. Bill. I'm Mohammed.
Nice to meet you.
What's your name? Sam. This is a really interesting argument. But let me tell you what my position is on it. By the way, it's really interesting because postmodernists, I'm not sure if you've heard of this strand of philosophical school of thought. They're called postmodernists. In the modern day, you've got people like Jacques Derrida, Michael Foucault, who have kind of like promoted it, if you will. You'd expect them to be atheists, and they are for the most part atheists because they believe in a lack of meaning in the world. They believe that we're originally pattern seekers, that we try and put things together, but the reality is that there is no absolute objective meaning, that these are social constructs, right? The point I'm making is this. If we use that logic, what's really interesting is that some postmodernists have attacked atheism as a meta-narrative in its own right. I'll tell you what I mean by that. The philosophical assumption that atheism is a neutral position is questioned by postmodernists. Postmodernists say that atheism, just as, for example, Greek mythology or Christianity or Islam, is in and of itself a meta-narrative, it doesn't necessarily mean that just because atheism is a lack of belief in something, that itself is not a meta-narrative. Now let me give you an example. There are some things that we presuppose without, number one, evidence, and number two, we don't question it. Let me give you an example. Consciousness is one example. We presuppose consciousness. Number two is rationality. Number three is logic. Number four is mathematics. Number five, especially when you're doing things like the scientific method, is the validity of the scientific method itself.
Yeah.
Number six, when you're speaking right now, when we're speaking, we presuppose time is a past
I
tense.
don't know, microphone.
There you go.
What's going on here?
You're going to have one.
I'm alright. I don't.
You sure?
Okay. What is the? Just out of interest, just what's the?
They put it up on various websites.
Like what?
We'll give you the links.
I don't mind knowing the links. But like, what is the website? Just out of interest.
We just have discussions, and that's why some people don't like him, so they put them online. Simple thing.
We've got 4 microphones.
Yeah, different channels.
Is it all different channels?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not I'm not like exactly sort of a force to be authority. So
I know. I
don't represent atheism.
I don't think I'm an authority.
Just for the sake of the
we're having a discussion.
And the,
it's Bill, isn't it? Sam and Bill.
Yeah, no, yeah, great.
Look, what I'm saying is this. I mean, atheism, if you look at the etymological root, comes from 2 words. A, meaning without, and theism, meaning God. So atheism is a lack of belief in God. And in philosophy, they usually compartmentalize atheists into 2 different strands. Negative atheists and positive atheists. Now, it seems like you guys are negative atheists. In other words, you are atheists as a result of a lack of belief, rather than believing that you have evidence for the non-existence of God.
Yeah, so I don't think it's really possible to disprove the existence of God completely. You've read the God Delusion. There's a scale of 1 to 7 in terms of, 1 is absolute, I know there is a God, 7 there is absolute, there is no God.
Yeah.
I'd say I'm, sort of 5 or 6.
And you know what's really interesting is that Richard Dawkins himself, he refers to, in many interviews, he talks about deism being a tenable alternative to theism. So the idea of a creator, an intelligence that has created the universe, but then is separate from the universe, is not personal in its nature. He sees that as a non-ridiculous type of claim, which is possible, tenable.
I think he says something about in terms of the way the universe is. I think perfect's the wrong word, but the way that the gravity is just the right amount where the cells and the atoms and molecules hold together. It's not too much if they won't completely implode, but they also don't explode either. There's something that's kind of perfect about the way that everything has formed and it has been made. So I think he says that is interesting that has happened. Yes. I'm not sure if he says that there is some sort of
no, he doesn't say he believes in deism.
Something with a conscious being.
There was one interview I had with an interviewer. I'm not sure his name is Bill something. It's one of the Jewish interviews in America, and he was basically asked. He actually explicitly said, an intelligence that's outside of the universe. It's not ridiculous to presuppose that kind of intelligence could have created the universe, could have laid the laws within the universe. Now look, atheists usually have different kinds of explanatory mechanisms for explaining why it is that the universe is so finely tuned. One of those is the multiverse theory. Is that something you guys subscribe to yourself?
Again, as not a speaker of authority, it's not something I've read briefly about it. I'm aware of the theory, but I couldn't really give much information on it. About you.
Again, it's pretty much exactly the same as at least myself. Theory about religions.
Okay. Speculative.
It's speculative.
Right.
Everyone, you can write pages and pages about it, but realistically, when it comes down to hard facts and being shown one way or the other, struggle to, in any way or sense, sort of say, yes, I know, that is real, I believe that is true.
Right, so let me ask you a question. What I was going to ask you was, now, if I say to you that as human beings, we're rational, sentient beings, yeah? And one of the things that means is that we're able to do deduction of some sorts. Would you accept deduction in the form of syllogism or otherwise as a means of deriving truth in this universe?
Yes, but deductions are based on prior knowledge that you've acquired already. You
Yeah.
deduce something based on something you already know.
Pardon?
I would say.
Say again?
All deductions that you make are based on things that you already know to be true, that you've already experienced.
Yeah, so that would have to be in the premises.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Would you
So
accept
what's
that?
your question?
So what I was going to say to you is that, look, I'm sure you guys have heard of the cosmological argument. I'm not sure if you've heard of this or not. Have you heard of the cosmological argument?
In terms of the Big
The
Bang?
Kalam
or
cosmological argument. Everything that begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist, therefore the universe has a cause.
Okay, so yeah, I don't agree with there is a cause for the universe or like a reason for it, no.
Okay, no, but that's fine.
Oh, you mean it's like a trigger, like something
No,
that
no,
actually
no.
created
A cause just means an entity, a thing outside of the scope of the universe.
I see.
So if I say everything that begins to exist has a cause, is that problematic?
See, this is where you're getting into the realms of things that I don't think anyone, apart from possibly religious people, pretend to know about.
Well, look, Leibniz,
So as
Leibniz was
I'm fairly certain that no scientist will pretend to know how the universe came about.
yeah, all right. Well,
And certainly I agree with that.
That's
I
fine.
don't know. Like,
no, I mean,
but I don't. Of course, there is a possibility that there is an intelligent being outside the universe.
but that's not what I'm saying
But
here.
I don't-
All I'm
I
saying
don't
is that
believe that is
the
truth.
cosmological argument works in the following way, yeah? They say that everything that begins to exist has a cause. The universe has a cause. The universe began to exist, therefore the universe had a cause. That's the cosmological argument. Okay, we're not saying anything about God, we're just saying a cause of some sort.
Why do we have to understand that it had a point where it said it is now in existence? There's
So
no
do you-
reason why we
do you-
can't say that it has always existed.
Do you believe that the universe always existed?
Yeah, I don't think that there would have been anything.
Because
When people say there was the Big Bang, what was there before that?
okay.
There would have been something there.
So do you believe in the Big Bang? If you believe in the Big Bang, that's a scientific model which actually presupposes the beginning of the universe.
No, I don't think it does. I think there's the way that you're
general
describing it is that there's only been one
We
Big
are
Bang.
atheists.
Yeah.
The current Big Bang
I
that has
believe
made
this.
our current state of matter. There's nothing to suggest that there hasn't been an infinite number
Yeah,
of
but
Big
even
Bangs.
okay, so you believe
Go
in
back into an infinite amount of time.
so you believe that there's an infinite amount of Big Bangs, all of which started or initiated the same universe or different universes?
What is the universe? That's the question. What is the universe?
The universe is that all that which is being all that which we can see with celestial bodies above us, basically, yeah,
Okay.
and which is expanding outward.
So that's the matter. So you're saying that there's nothing beyond the matter, the physical matter. Because
They talk about
only space. 'Cause
the
it's
question of whether the universe itself is matter or not is a discussion within physicists. So this was a discussion between Newton and Leibniz. Leibniz believed that actually all that Leibniz, and then afterwards Einstein kind of agreed with Leibniz. Well, basically there was a discussion whether the space of the universe is physical or not.
Yeah.
That's the discussion. We don't need to really get into that for this discussion. These are both fine ways of accepting how the universe is composed. What I'm saying is if you accept the Big Bang Theory, if you accept that, then you're saying that the universe began to exist.
Well, no, because I mean there are theories about the oscillatory
That's what I mean. That's what
universe.
No, but
theory,
that's
where
a
infinite
diff-
amount of
it's
time.
coming and going and
Fine.
slowly. then it comes
I haven't got a problem with those. I'm just saying that if you're subscribing to the Big Bang Theory as we know it,
Yeah.
that there was a singularity and then there's an expansion,
Yeah.
then you're actually reinforcing the fact that there was a start to the universe.
Well, no, because the expansion began.
So you don't believe in a cause to the universe? You don't believe in a beginning to the universe?
No, I don't believe that.
Well,
Okay, fine.
I mean,
no problem.
I don't agree or disagree.
Fine. What I'm going to do now,
Yeah.
since you don't agree with a beginning to the universe,
Yeah.
that's not a problem.
Yeah.
I'll say this doesn't change anything. I'll tell you why. What there is, classically, there is the Kalam cosmological argument, which is the idea of causality. It's linked to causality. And you're right to suggest that in order for the whole process to work, the secondary stage, which is that the universe had a beginning, would have to be proved. And there is scientific evidence for the fact that the universe had a beginning. Whether that evidence is absolute or not is a good discussion to have. You can't say it's absolute.
No.
Sound
not,
good,
not
yeah?
At all. Yeah.
So instead of discussing the cosmological argument, which I was just using as kind of like a tangential point actually, I want to discuss the contingency argument, which is actually more, in many ways more impressive. I'll tell you why. If we say that everything that began to exist is dependent upon something else.
Right.
Now, in order for you to reject this premise,
But what is the premise though? I don't quite understand.
okay, everything that began to exist depends upon something else.
In what sense? And how?
In the
what is it?
for its existence, for its existence. So, like for example, I've got a mobile phone, right?
Yeah.
This mobile phone began to exist. Someone made it in a factory somewhere. Now, this mobile phone has a battery inside, and for some reason, they are not allowing us to take the batteries out of the phones nowadays, right? You know this. But anyways, if this phone if the battery depletes and dies, what will be necessary for me to do is put charger inside, yeah? Okay. So in other words, the phone is dependent upon the electricity of the charger in order to be operational.
Yeah.
Okay, no controversies there, hopefully, yeah?
That's fine. Yeah.
So the phone is dependent upon the charger.
Yeah.
The charger depends upon some nuclear power plant, and so on and so forth. What I'm saying is that anything that began to exist, like the phone, like yourself, like me and you, like the tree on the background, depends upon something else in order for it to exist. Does that make sense?
It makes sense in using simple objects like your phone and people and grass and trees, but when you're talking about the universe, again, I don't have a sort of strong opinion on what is.
Well,
the
I haven't
cause of
talked about the universe. Fine. Let's not talk.
That's where you're. I see that's
Okay,
where you're going
right.
with it.
Let's not
Or
talk.
to a smaller
Let me
matter,
let me shift it. Let me shift it one more time. Let me shift it one more time. Let's take away all time element from it. Anything with limited variables depends upon something else. By definition. Anything with limited variables depends upon something else.
What's your definition? What do you mean by limited variables?
Okay, so it's not unlimited in its composition. That's what I mean. So for example, going back to my phone example,
But I think the phone's is not a great answer because it's something that we've created. Let's talk about.
why isn't okay? But it's an entity in existence, right?
Yeah.
So I'm saying that this phone has limited variables.
Yes,
Okay,
we understand. Yeah,
accepted.
yeah.
So it's not unlimited in its composition.
Yeah.
Now, this thing which has limited variables and is not unlimited in its composition depends upon something else.
I agree.
Okay. Now, what I'm saying is that just like this phone, anything that has limited variables depends upon something else. Now, are you able to find me an example of something that isn't in that category of things?
That isn't
That-
limited.
Something that has limited variables but is independent. In other words, does not depend upon anything else.
Not singular objects, no. But again, I assume where you're going with this is.
No, forget about where we're going.
Well, that's important though because that.
No, I know it's important, but do you know, an objective mind, can I be fair
No,
with you
I'm
guys?
agreeing with what you're saying on each stage.
But Sam, can I tell you something? What you're doing here is we're not playing a game of chess, okay?
Sure.
Because if it was a game of chess, okay, you'd be looking at the steps that would potentially come afterwards,
Sure,
right?
I understand you're not trying to trick me into saying-
An objective person, a scientist, a mathematician, a logician, a truth seeker, ought to just look at the premise as it is and try and objectively examine that premise. Then, if you find that that premise is faultless, is not problematic, then we can proceed to the next premise. Now, if you feel like, okay, I don't want to grant my interlocutor this premise, because if I grant my interlocutor this premise, he'll trap me in the next stage, then what that shows is that there's an agenda behind your reasoning. Whereas if you're saying to yourself, look, forget about it,
I
let's
understand.
let's
I
just...
understand. So
yeah.
therefore, to answer your original question, there is a possibility that the universe is unlimited.
I'm not talking about the universe is unlimited. I just asked you anything.
therefore there would not
no,
be
just the
no-
first
no
premise.
force.
Just the first premise here. We're talking about anything with limited variables depends upon something else in order to exist.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree.
Now, the universe has limited variables.
I think there is one answer that he's maybe missing.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
which is-
What's your name, first of all?
It's Andy.
How you doing, Andy?
Okay, nice to meet
All three of you now.
Sorry to get
No, I want all the
very
minds to come
interested
together.
in this.
Let's bring the minds together.
The thing would be, when you say the phone came into existence,
Yeah, yes.
In a way, that's our one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it is that the phone's always been